Wi-Fi Sheep would like to say a huge thank you to all of you that kindly support us. Help us continue to bring new videos like this. Join patreon.com/Wi-Fi Sheep from just $1 a month. Hello and welcome back to Wi-Fi Sheep right here on YouTube with me, Tom. In today's video we're going to have another look at the 1983 8-bit Acorn Electron microcomputer. As I haven't covered this computer in much detail, you may have seen it here on the channel a few times, but also in the post I've got a brand new toy to play with it, and it revolutionises how this machine actually works. But before all that, I want to tell you about Turnkey PCB services provided by our partners at PCBGOGO.com. These include PCB manufacturing and assembly, component sourcing, functional testing and IC programming. PCBGOGO manufacturing bases are equipped with the most advanced production equipment such as Yamaha pick and place machines, reflow oven, wave soldering machines, X-ray and AOI testing machines, all operated by highly skilled technical personnel. Although PCBGOGO's international operation is only 5 years old, their factories and world-class production facilities have over 10 years experience in the PCB industry, serving Chinese domestic and internal markets. PCBGOGO is a leading specialist in surface mount through-hole and mixed technology PCB assembly. PCBGOGO provides an easy, cost-effective online ordering services from prototype to mass production. So join today. Sign up for your free account today at PCBGOGO.com. So the Acorn Electron, it's affectionately known as the ALK from the community that support and still use these machines. The problem at the time was that during the mid to early 1980s, Acorn were having a bit of a problem shifting the highly expensive Acorn BBC Micro, especially to the home domestic market, where the likes of the ZX Spectrum and the Commodore 64 were really taking hold. So in 1983, Acorn introduced the Acorn Electron as an attempt to compete with the Speccy and the C64. In fact, very much like the ZX Spectrum and the C64, it only had tape interface for data in and out. So it was effectively a tape-based machine, bearing in mind that loading software off cassette tapes was extremely popular here in Europe right through the 1980s. In the modern day, the Acorn Electron does have quite an enthusiastic following, and I found my machine has been very useful. You may have seen it here on the channel before when I've been testing things like the Cub RGB monitors. That was right back at the start of Wi-Fi Sheep. And I've also been able to use the machine as a lightweight 8-bit retro computer I can take out to shows, especially where I don't have easy vehicle access to the venues. So, for example, the Acorn Electron can quite happily fit with a small monitor in a backpack, and we can take it into an exhibition hall that way. So it does have its uses. The biggest problem here in 2020, trying to use this machine, is the tape interface and the lack of being able to quickly load impressive software or games onto the system. Now, I have tried with real cassette tapes, and it was taking anything up to 15-20 minutes to load a tape, and it doesn't always work. I then switched to having a go of using MP3 and WAV files playing from an iPhone by plugging in via the headphone jack, for those of us that had iPhones that still got the headphone jacks on. And that did work, but again, it didn't speed up any of the loading process. That is until this summer, where someone actually released a card interface for the Acorn Electron. And that's what I picked up here today, and that's what we're going to look at. This allows you to instantly load BBC Micro.SSD disk images straight off an SD card, and it's very similar to the other card processors you've seen me use on the other BBC Micros. In fact, the actual formatted SD cards are actually cross-compatible from this Electron device to the BBC Micros. So without further ado, let's go and check it out, and let's see what this thing can actually do. So this is my one and only working Acorn Electron, and I have to admit, since getting this back out for this video, I've noticed how yellow this machine has got, and also it's still got some grime engraved into this plastic texture at the front. So I think I remember saying this about 2-3 years ago when I last used this machine on camera. It's long overdue a service, but importantly, fingers crossed, it does still work, and it did work earlier today, so we should be all right. Before we go any further, what I will do is I'll show you what's inside one of these. If I just put that to one side, I have another one here, which is my scrap non-working machine. You can probably tell it's already missing some parts. This machine has given up bits to keep this one going. Also, things like the keycaps and stuff have allowed me to repair BBC Masters, as the Electron shares quite a few bits with the later BBC Master series. So anyway, let's take the case off. I'll just take the keyboard out. The keyboard, by the way, on this is quite nice. It's a proper key-switched mechanical board with a sort of one of those flexi ribbon PCB type things that goes into the main PCB itself. So inside we do have one half of a power regulator board. Now the Electron series used a mains power transformer that was external, unlike the BBC Micros that had a switching supply inside. So this power supply, I'm not entirely sure what else this is filtering, but it is breaking off different currents, primarily 5 volts, and I believe, if I remember correctly, one of these is a 12 volt line as well. So it's mainly about voltage switching inside. The actual unit itself, to keep the costs down, very, very little going on inside on the main board. So I've bring my working unit back into view, and I'll just show you size comparison with a 48K ZX Spectrum. So the ZX Spectrum was even quite a bit smaller than the Electron, which was quite a bit smaller than the BBC Micro or the Commodore 64. ZX Spectrum was still cheaper, but it had this rubber membrane keyboard, which failed over time. This one has failed. Whereas, as I said, the Electron still has a proper mechanical keyboard. Interfaces on this unit are extremely sparse. Very little underneath, just power in on one side, virtually nothing on the back, and you've got your sockets, as I already explained, on this side. So not an awful lot to connect into. Pretty much the same with the Sinclair, really. Just the audio. That's been converted to composite, but it was originally UHF RF out, 9 volts in, and you'll notice both machines have these edge connector type things inside, and basically that's just the main PCB sticking out the back with these connectors on, and that actually allows for cartridges and things to be added. In the case of the Electron, it was for additional +1 devices that allowed for things like cartridges to be plugged in or floppy disk drives. Now, it's not a cartridge slot as such, but what I have bought does plug into that interface. So let's show you what I have bought. Here it is. Some paperwork we'll come to in a minute. And it's an Acorn Electron ELKSD-64. It's in a polystatic protected bag. Let's take that out. And the SD card, by the way, does not come with it. I've added that. I'll take that out for a minute. And it's a 3D printed cartridge looking thing with the reverse connector for the edge strip. And it actually just connects into the back of the Electron like that. Then has an SD card reader. Make sure I get that the right way around. It actually uses the standard format size SD cards, but a lot of the other MMC devices now use the micros. So this is an 8 gig micro, which I've just put into a standard adapter, and that plugs in like that. And just make sure that card's in. It is quite vulnerable hanging on the back, so you do need to be careful. But that now expands out the Acorn Electron, and actually for the very first time gives us instant access solid state storage, which means we no longer have to rely on floppies, or in this case slow loading cassette tape, in order to get data in and out of the machine. So without further ado, let's get this connected up. Luckily the Electron uses, as well as its black and white composite, has the standard BBC RGB socket on the back. This is TTL Logic Digital RGB. and it's a 6-pin DIN, and I have a 6-pin DIN BBC micro cable to European SCART standard, which is SCART is a bit like an analog HDMI standard that we've used for about 30 years now, and most flat screen TVs in this country still support SCART, so it's a very quick way of getting these to plug in with good quality picture into modern television hardware. So let's plug that in. I never quite remember which way these go in. There we go. So that just plugs in like so, and I'll put the back into the TV, and then the actual power brick itself. It's one of the original 80s power bricks, probably beginning to fray now. Just goes into the socket on that side, and that's it. We should be powered up, so let's turn this machine on. So let's power up the Electron for the very first time. This is without the cartridge installed. And you get a single beep, and you get the Acorn Electron prompt on screen. So this is as it is as standard. You'll also notice that it boots up into a different screen mode. So the BBC Micro would actually boot into what we call mode 7, which is teletext mode. But the Electron won't boot into mode 7 because it doesn't actually have a teletext chip on board, which means it can't do the mode 7 graphics. So it has every other mode. So we can do mode 0, which is the high resolution mode, no problem. And mode 2, which is the low resolution mode. And it does support the colour. So very much in that case, it is just like a BBC Micro. Power off, let's put the cartridge in. This is just a cartridge and not an SD card. Power up the machine. Now I'm having to power off the mains because the Electron doesn't have a main power switch on it. Again, a cost cutting measure. And you can see now that the screen has actually changed. It now says Acorn Electron 64K. So this cartridge actually gives you extra RAM, double the memory. It's found a filing system, the MMSF filing system, and it's also registering itself as a +1. So we should, if I can remember correctly, have a ROM. So let's just hit help, star help, and it actually tells you what's on the system, including what's on the tree copy ROM system. So there's actually now software and drivers installed because of what's loaded on this additional card. Now we can't put the SD card in straight away because we have got to format and set up the SD card to add a PC directory onto it that the Electron can read. So let's do that right now and we'll come back. So I'm going to take blank SD card, as already mentioned. I've been using an adapter, and I'm going to take the card out and put it into a USB adapter into a PC laptop. Once that comes up, I'm going to find the SD card. Now this has already been formatted, but I'm going to reformat it again, so as if it was a new blank card. So we'll say format, and you want to make sure you select FAT32 or FAT standard, so not exFAT and not NTFS. Has to be a FAT standard. Quick format is fine, so we'll click start, we'll say OK. The format is complete. So we've now got the blank card. Now with the ELKSD-64 SD card interface, it comes with an instruction sheet, and on there is actually a link to a website where you can download supported images. These are .mmb files. So what I did is I went over to the website, I've downloaded one, and I have it here. This is the larger of the image. It's zipped at the moment, so we'll just click to extract all. And you see it has a file here called beeb.mmb. An MMB file is basically a collection of .ssd files brought together in one large image file. And this is what the MMC readers for these devices actually read to mount up the floppies. So to install, we just click, drag and drop. And you see it's 99.8 megabytes of data. That's huge considering most SSD images were only 200k each. And that's it. That's now installed, so we can eject the SD card, and we'll try that back in the cartridge and into the Electron to see if it will mount up and work. So we'll now just return the SD card to the cartridge. Make sure the cartridge is plugged in. Do this with the power off. Now let's power back up the computer. So far so good. Now we should be able to hold down shift and brake. Try that again, shift brake. There you go. So this is now the games menu list, and there's several games we can choose from. Unlike other MMC lists, this one's a little bit slow. Basically, it has to generate the program code and do the video all off the processor. So basically it splits it in half and only runs at 1 megahertz each way, which means the machine physically slows down, unlike a BBC Micro. And that's something to bear in mind if you try and run native BBC Micro software on this machine. So if we go to, let's see now. We hold down caps lock and for function. Bearing in mind this machine also has no function keys, so you have to double up as the number keys at the top being your function keys. So let's go to E. So F7 E. And we can pick a game to play. There's lots on the system. Let's do E-Type, which is quite a late release. So press M, and it loads up the E-Type disk image. And you get this splash screen. It's now swap the disk image, and this will now load up. Redefine game keys, I say no. This is 1990, so this is quite a late release for the Electron. I can't remember what the steering is. There it is. You notice the frame rate is not really there at all. It's quite a faithful recreation, but on the Electron it is just slow, and also it only renders half a screen to save RAM. Oh, I nearly went off then. So we'll break from that. Let's reboot back in. Let's jump to E again. So we've done E-Type. I'll do Elite because there is a version of Elite on here. And you can see this actually, just keep hitting 0 so we can launch. There we go. It's playable just about, but it's all completely black and white, and the frame rate, the minute anything comes into view, the frame rate you can see just drops off the face of the earth, and it's very, very slow. And that's really sluggish. But it is the complete Elite game, it is here. As well as brand new hardware, the Acorn Electron has also been benefiting from brand new homebrew software and games that have been developed especially for the platform. One such game, which we've had permission here on Wi-Fi Sheep to show you, comes from 0xCode and it's called Momentum. Take a look at this. This is absolutely fantastic, and best of all, it's actually free to download. Links are in the description. And remember, this is a brand new game for 2020. Press space to start. And it's just a case of collecting all the noughts and ones. You play the electrical components inside a computer system, collecting binary elements. And I think if you hold down, I think it's shift. There you go. Goes a little bit faster. And then pick up the 6502 processor to win. Now, considering I showed you just how slowly the Electron can run some stuff, this is actually running surprisingly fast. I have no... Oh! Just... Oh! Yeah, something like that. But this is a really, really fun game, this. And a really nice, it's a nice creation for something that's come out literally this year. And best of all, it's free, which is also amazing. Oh, it's yeah, it takes a while to play, but it's really fun. So if you do get an opportunity to play this either on real hardware or an emulator, strongly recommend it. Well, that concludes today's revisit to the Acorn Electron. We really hope you enjoyed the video, and do make sure you like and subscribe to us here on Wi-Fi Sheep, as we'll be doing much more 8-bit content like that in the near future. As always, thank you for your company, and I'd also like to give a special thank you to 0xCode for allowing us to share Momentum here on Wi-Fi Sheep. The links to that are in the description if you want to download it. As always, I will see you real soon. Until next time, thanks so much for your company. Bye for now.